The Industrial Revolution was good news for the U.S. economy. With the availability of cheap labor and vast resources, the U.S. was able to mass-produce goods such as steel. Due to immigration, cheap and unskilled labor was highly accessible. Workers worked long hours in unsafe working conditions. Many workers turned to labor unions for answers. This led to violent strikes as a call for help. The Great Strike of 1877 was a breakthrough for unions. It showed workers of all industries that there was power in unions. Immigrants had to pass through checkpoints on their way into the United States. These checkpoints were islands located on the east and west coast of the U.S. These islands were known as Angel and Ellis Islands. On the west coast, immigrants from Asia, primarily Chinese people, passed through Angel Island where they were treated poorly and had to wait long detentions in ramshackle buildings. On the east coast, however, immigrants from Western Europe passed through Ellis Island where they experienced a physical examination by a doctor and reported to a government inspector. When immigrants finally reached the U.S. mainland, many immigrants experienced culture shock and moved to the cities where work was available. Most immigrants in the cities lived with many other families in dumbbell or row housing, which was cramped and very dangerous. Spanning from the 1890s through the 1920s, the Progressive Era was a time of reform in the United States. Antitrust laws, prohibition, and women's suffrage all went underway during this time. The Progressive Era was a time of change in the United States. There were four main goals of the Progressive Era. These goals include moral improvement, protecting social welfare, economic reform, and fostering efficiency. There were many causes of the Progressive Era. These include books like The Jungle, monopolies, tenement housing, child labor, political machines, and muckrakers. There were many effects of the Progressive Era. Those include trust busting, the Food and Drug Act, the Square Deal, settlement houses, and assembly lines. Imperialism, the policy of extending a nation's authority over other countries by economic, political, or military means. In simpler terms, imperialism is one country taking over another country's economy, politics, or military. Imperialism was so important to the United States that it would have been difficult for the United States to become a world power without it. Imperialism gave the United States power and made us a richer, stronger country. On February 15, 1898, the USS Maine, a secondary battleship, mysteriously blew up in Havana Harbor, Cuba. No one knew for sure what had caused this disaster. Yellow journalists blame the Spanish for the explosion. They claim that a Spanish torpedo or bomb claimed the lives of over 200 people on the ship. They blew the entire situation out of proportion and sparked the start of the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War only lasted for about 5 months. The U.S. won the war, and the Treaty of Paris ended the conflict. As a result, the U.S. gained control of Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam.